with higher prestige and higher incomes were. And when they thought that was so interesting, and they, you know, in their finding, that Black and Hispanic attorney satisfaction does not depend on the attainment of prestige markers, such as high-class rank and lucrative equity partner positions. In fact, the secret to their success appears to be that they have not internalized the dominant values of a profession that formerly excluded them. And if they seek to emulate white colleagues' career paths, minority attorneys may do themselves a disservice by avoiding nominally low-status practice settings such as solo practice, that they in fact find very professionally rewarding when they go there. So this is a late June 2018 published that sort of supports some of the work we're engaged in here today, which is there may be more paths to professional satisfaction in low external status but high personal reward work. So that's what I found running a solo practice in Oakland. I went 2 years at Legal Aid, then I said, you know, this ain't working for me. And but I decided not to apply for a job that I wouldn't love to get. Again, I was kind of free. I didn't have a family. I was solo. I was a woman. Nobody expected me to be a lawyer. I said 10% of my class. Nobody thought I was a lawyer. You go to court, and then, of course, they still thought you were the court reporter or the witness or something. So I couldn't find a job I wanted to apply for. But I found an old house on the Telegraph Avenue in Oakland, and some friends of mine, and they said, oh, we have a room here, and we have all these women who need a lawyer, and you could fit in with us. And we had the black guy, the Jewish guy, the old guy, and the white woman, you know. And I was there. They didn't call me a girl, they knew better than that. But Oliver Jones, the African-American man, had the title, the Western Regional Counsel of the NAACP. In Oakland, in the 70s, this is 1978, anyone who called the NAACP would be referred to who had a legal matter it seemed they needed to the Western Regional Counsel, to Oliver Jones. He didn't get paid a dime by the NAACP, the largest, oldest grassroots organization in America, and I don't know about the world, but those $1, $5 dues was a place people in the community in Oakland, where I lived, would go, and then they'd be sent to us, and we would triage them and help a lot of them. A housing crisis was brewing at the time, and Jarvis-Gann initiative, rolling back property taxes, passed in 1978, right when I'm going into the old house on the Telegraph Avenue in Oakland. And, you know, the way some things, the more things change, they stay the same. Oliver Jones started doing police misconduct litigation against city governments and the police in Richmond and Oakland, which is just north of Berkeley. So I was doing a lot of housing client representation, and he and his partner, Jim Channon, were doing a lot of police misconduct and everything else to stay alive, you know, to keep the doors open. It was pretty wild and a lot of fun. Our office was ransacked at one point, you know, came in the morning and all the files were all over, and they thought the police breaking in. But we were really in touch with the community. I mean, there were a lot of tenants in Berkeley too who were graduate students and nurses and people. If you moved, the housing crisis was such that if you had to move because you were being evicted, you'd have to move miles away. Your children would have to change schools. So I learned how to discuss with my clients, well, how many months' rent are you willing to risk in order to stay? I bet I could do this for about 3 months worth. So learning how to talk to my clients about the value proposition in exchange for what the consequences would be, what we would try to do, was key. And I heard you talk about this somewhat, Chantel, is like how we talk to our clients about the money exchange was critical. I only had one person ever not pay me. He was someone who, when I didn't get his job back, he became a heroin addict. I had lots of compassion. He had no money. It was just a bad, I wasn't going to try and collect it anyway. Everyone always paid me because of the communication. And because we had this discussion. It wasn't, I would say I have a sliding scale. Where do you think you fall on it? People never say they're at the bottom. Very, very seldom. They don't want to be. They kind of do it a little above. I didn't mean it as a strategy, but in fact was a really good way, because I didn't want them to fill out income verification forms like you have to at Legal Aid. So now I had 3 strategies that I think also helped my success, and I haven't really heard these mentioned yet. Partnering with community organizations, the NAACP, informal partnership, but just relationships, and then the word spreads. I think eventually people weren't calling the NAACP. Their friends would say, call the law office of Oliver Jones or Ann Jurgens. We had the same phone number, but I didn't share bank accounts with all those men. That would have been a disaster. So there was also a lot of housing activism going on about making landlords share their property tax savings because they had sold the initiative saying tenants will benefit too, but then of course they didn't share any of the money. And so Berkeley passed a law that said landlords have to give back property tax savings, but then they formed the Berkeley Tea Party, the landlords, that was their landlords organization, and resisted compliance with the property tax rollback. I was there, a lot of luck, but I also knew housing law because I had training at Legal Aid for 2 years. And I started suing landlords to share their property tax savings. Conveniently, there was a pot of money to get at the end, but also landlords would then retaliate. Berkeley passed rent control, and then what was interesting is I knew that this was going to affect my practice a great deal. They had my second strategy, it just evolved, it's all in retrospect, is that they advertised for city attorneys for the rent board. And I said, I don't want to give up my practice, this is too much fun, it's important, but I don't want them to mess up this rent board that they're setting up. So I said, I'll apply for this job, but tell them I can only do it half-time, 1 foot in the community. I really thought I was kind of crazy, but who got hired? Me. And another guy who had done the same thing, saying that he worked for the National Housing Law Project, Backup Center for Legal Aid, so they hired 2 half-time attorneys to be the staff attorneys for the rent board. So for 2 years, I had a half-time job working for the city of Berkeley. They gave me benefits. I earned benefits. But I also kept my practice it really helped get me through a key growth period, or how I'm going to handle this period. And I think that finding a job that supports your practice is a strategy. I mean, it wasn't an intentional strategy, but it helps me a lot. After 2 years, it was kind of set up, and I wanted to get out of city bureaucracy and go back full-time to my practice. Well, it turns out the city later hired me to defend the constitutionality of the rent control ordinance, and along with a professor at Golden Gate, a clinical professor, Myron Moskowitz, and we defended it successfully all the way to the California Supreme Court. And then the city, when it was being argued here, hired Lawrence Tribe, which was a good move, and we won. But this idea of maybe we could convince certain institutions to hire someone who's committed to a solo small practice for some legal work to support them, train them, and for me it turned into really good work afterwards as well, working for the city. I mean, this is, but the other strategy was that collaborative space, this hub of lawyers, and I know lawyers now who work out of co-working spaces, and having other lawyers around, but also non-lawyers, the ability to work with non-lawyers, I think is really important